The room went dead silent. 40 executives stared as Ryan's big presentation crashed before their eyes. "This should be working," he mumbled, frantically clicking buttons as red error messages flooded the screen. I sat in the back row, trying not to smile. The fancy algorithm he'd stolen from me, my work, my late nights, my idea, was falling apart exactly as I planned. Our CEO checked his watch. The clients shifted uncomfortably. Ryan's face turned pale as he realized his career was melting down in real time. "Maybe there's a system issue," Ryan said, voice cracking. Then he started blaming his team, people who had nothing to do with his theft. That's when I stood up. The flash drive felt cool in my palm as I raised my hand. "I can fix this," I said simply. All eyes turned to me. Ryan froze. I brought the receipts they never expected. 5 years of stolen work was about to catch up to him in the next 5 minutes. "Has this happened to your workplace, where someone's house of cards finally collapsed?" How we got here. Next Wave isn't just a tech company. It's a machine. By the time I joined in 2020, they were already the fastest growing customer analytics firm on the West Coast. Their pitch was simple. "We don't just track what customers do. We predict what they'll do next." I started as a junior developer, employee number 86. 5 years later, there were over 500 people, and I'd worked my way up to senior algorithm specialist. Not because of office politics or who I knew, but because I was good at one thing: seeing patterns others missed. "Mark has the gift," my first manager told people. "Give him any dataset and he'll find the $1 million insight hiding in plain sight." That reputation got me assigned to our highest value clients and most challenging projects. That's also how I met Ryan Chambers. Ryan was everything I wasn't. Polished, MBA educated, naturally confident. He joined as a product manager, but rose quickly to director of innovation strategy. In meetings, executives listened when he spoke. "We should pair you two up," our VP suggested after I solved a particularly tricky client problem. Ryan's vision and Mark's technical skills could be a perfect match. At first, Ryan became my mentor, teaching me how to present ideas to leadership, while I showed him how our technology actually worked. We had weekly coffee meetings where I'd explain the technical challenges I was solving. "This is why we're unstoppable," Ryan would say, slapping me on the back. "You build it, I sell it, and everyone wins." But NextWave's culture had a dark side. Quarterly performance reviews ranked everyone against their peers. Promotion committees required innovation contributions to move up. Teams competed for resources, and ideas weren't just valued. They were currency. I didn't play the political game well, but I didn't need to. In my first 3 years, I developed 4 major algorithmic improvements that boosted client retention by 23%. When clients renewed multi-million-dollar contracts, they specifically mentioned my work. "Just keep doing what you're doing," Ryan assured me. "I'll make sure the right people know your contributions." I believed him. I trusted him. I shared my ideas freely in our meetings, drawing diagrams and explaining concepts while he took detailed notes. Then I found a first red flag in a routine email. It was a company-wide update about innovation highlights from our quarterly business review. There was Ryan's name beside a new predictive modeling framework, one I had sketched out for him just 2 weeks earlier. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere. I stared at my screen, reading it 3 times to make sure I wasn't missing something. The description used my exact terminology. Even the example cases were the ones I'd shared with him. "Has this happened at your workplace, where the politics matter more than the product?" I let the email slide. Maybe Ryan just forgot to mention me. Maybe he was planning to give me credit later. I decided to focus on my work instead. And I had something big in the works. Our biggest client, Rapid Retail, was struggling with their customer targeting. Their conversion rates had dropped 18% in 6 months. They were considering leaving us. That's when I had my breakthrough. A new algorithm that could identify customer interest patterns 70% faster than our current system. The real innovation was how it connected seemingly unrelated behaviors into accurate purchase predictions. I called it cross-pattern recognition. During our next coffee meeting, I showed Ryan my early designs. This could save Rapid Retail, I explained, spreading out my notebook pages covered with flowcharts. "Look how it connects these data points that normally get ignored." Ryan leaned forward, eyes widening. This is exactly what we need right now. Can you walk me through the technical framework? For an hour, he asked detailed questions. How would it scale? What were the privacy implications? Could it work across industries? He took photos of my diagrams with his phone. Let me bring this to the leadership team, Ryan said. They need to prioritize resources for this. Keep refining it, and I'll make the business case. I felt valued. Important. Maybe I had misjudged the situation with the email. 2 weeks later came the quarterly strategy meeting. All teams gathered in the main hall as executives shared roadmap updates. I sat with my development team, waiting for our department's turn. When Ryan took the stage, the slide behind him made my stomach drop. It was my diagram, my algorithm, even my name for it, cross-pattern recognition. But Ryan was presenting it as his innovation. I've been developing a new approach to customer targeting, he said confidently. This framework will transform how we analyze behavior patterns. He clicked through slides showing my exact designs, the exact solutions I'd sketched in my notebook, even used my examples from rapid retail. My teammate nudged me. Isn't that your thing? She whispered. I nodded, speechless. After the meeting, I approached my direct manager, hoping for support. I saw Ryan's presentation. I said carefully. That was actually my algorithm he presented. I developed it for rapid retail. My boss smiled and said, let's keep this between us. Ryan's giving our department visibility with the executives. Sometimes that's how the game works. Your contribution will be recognized in other ways. But it wasn't. The next day, Ryan was assigned to lead the cross-pattern initiative. My role? Technical support. Has this happened at your workplace, when you see your work with someone else's name on it? My annual performance review was scheduled for the following week. Perfect timing. I walked in confident. I had delivered major algorithmic improvements, saved our biggest client, created a framework that was now a company priority. My contributions were obvious, or so I thought. Mark, your technical skills are strong, my manager began, sliding my review form across the table. But we need to see more leadership and original thinking. I stared at the rating. Meets expectations. Meets expectations? I developed cross-pattern recognition. It's saving rapid retail millions. My manager shifted uncomfortably. The leadership team recognizes Ryan's strategic vision on that initiative. Your technical implementation was solid, but we need you to bring more innovative ideas to the table. I left that meeting in a daze. The review would limit my bonus and kill any chance of promotion for at least a year. 2 days later, the company-wide email arrived. Ryan had been promoted to Vice President of Strategic Innovation. The announcement specifically highlighted his groundbreaking work on cross-pattern recognition and his consistent track record of innovative solutions. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my laptop and began searching through old presentations and project documentation. A pattern emerged that made my stomach turn. The predictive scoring system I developed last year? Ryan had presented it to the board as his concept 3 weeks after our coffee meeting about it. The client retention algorithm from my first year somehow became Ryan's strategic initiative a month after I explained it to him. The privacy-focused data structure I designed appeared in Ryan's innovation showcase with only minor changes. I began taking screenshots, saving timestamps, checking server logs to see when files have been accessed and by whom. I created a simple timeline that made the pattern undeniable. The next morning, I ran into Jenna from the data science team by the coffee machine. Heard about Ryan's promotion, she said, watching my reaction carefully. I nodded, trying to seem neutral. You know, the same thing happened to David before he left, she continued, lowering her voice. And to Sarah, in Customer Insights. Their work somehow became Ryan's big ideas. Did they ever say anything? I asked. David tried. Next thing we knew, HR scheduled a quick chat without him. 2 weeks later, he was on a performance improvement plan. Left soon after. I thanked her for the coffee and the warning. That afternoon, I created a new folder on my encrypted personal drive. I labeled it Project Documentation. Inside, I began organizing evidence. Emails, screenshots, access logs, version histories. Ryan wasn't just stealing my work. He had built his entire career on taking credit for other people's innovations, and the company was rewarding him for it. Has this happened at your workplace, when your contributions disappear from the narrative? I became a digital detective overnight. First, I checked our document management system. Every file has a history log showing who viewed it, when, and what changes they made. I pulled reports for all my project files going back 2 years. The pattern was impossible to miss. Within hours after our weekly meetings, Ryan accessed my folders. He downloaded my documentation, diagrams, and code samples. Sometimes at night, sometimes on weekends. The timestamps created a perfect trail. For the cross-pattern recognition algorithm, I found something even more damning. Ryan had created his presentation file at 8:42 p.m. on March 15th, just 4 hours after our coffee meeting where I first showed him the concept. The original version of his file contained exact copies of my diagrams, which he later modified slightly for the company presentation. I dug deeper into email headers. Whenever I shared ideas with Ryan, he sent emails to senior leadership within days. Subject lines like strategic concept for consideration and innovation pipeline edition. I couldn't see the content, but the timing aligned perfectly with each theft. Next, I studied the calendar patterns. After our meetings, Ryan consistently scheduled sessions with VPs and executives. The meeting titles evolved from vague innovation discussion to specific references to my work, cross-pattern strategy review, and predictive algorithm roadmap. I discovered something else. NextWave had an official intellectual property and attribution policy. It clearly stated, all significant intellectual contributions must be documented with the original creator identified in any internal or external presentations. Ryan had violated this policy at least 7 times with my work alone. Most revealing was the server access log. For the cross-pattern project, Ryan had accessed my development environment at 11:36 p.m. on a Sunday. He downloaded my test data, algorithm documentation, and implementation plan. The next morning, he requested a meeting with the CTO. The evidence formed a perfect timeline. 1. I shared concept with Ryan. 2. Ryan accessed my files after hours. 3. Ryan met with executives. 4. Ryan presented my work as his own. 5. Ryan received recognition and rewards. I created spreadsheets tracking each incident. I saved screenshots with timestamps. I exported access logs showing IP addresses and user credentials. I recorded meeting dates where concepts were first discussed. The metadata didn't lie. The digital world keeps receipts that people forget exist. The more I discovered, the calmer I felt. My frustration transformed into cold determination. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about exposing a systematic fraud that had hurt multiple colleagues and rewarded the wrong behavior. I compiled everything into a comprehensive document with clear timeline visualizations. The evidence was overwhelming when viewed together. No one could dismiss this as a misunderstanding or collaboration confusion. The question was, who could I trust with this information? My direct manager had already shown his cards. Going to Ryan's superiors was risky if they were invested in his success. That left one option I wasn't excited about. Has this happened at your workplace, when digital footprints reveal someone's true actions? I scheduled a meeting with HR, requesting Allison from Employee Relations. Her reputation for fairness made her my best option. Thanks for coming in, Mark, she said, but I noticed she wasn't alone. Bradley from Legal sat beside her, already a bad sign. I presented my concerns carefully. I've documented multiple instances where my work was presented by Ryan Chambers without attribution. I explained, sliding my folder across the table. This violates our attribution policy, section 4.3. Allison glanced at the folder, but didn't open it. We understand collaborative work can create confusion about ownership. This isn't collaborative confusion, I said. I've brought evidence showing a pattern. Bradley leaned forward. NextWave encourages information sharing between teams. When you share ideas with leadership, those ideas become company property. The policy specifically requires attribution, I countered. In certain contexts, Bradley replied. The policy has flexibility for strategic communications. Allison offered what seemed like a sympathetic smile. Mark, We value your technical contributions, but innovation requires many hands. Ryan's role is to synthesize concepts for executive consumption. He's presenting my algorithms as his original work. He's presenting company solutions, Bradley corrected. Your performance review suggests you might benefit from understanding how team dynamics work at higher levels. The threat was subtle but clear. Allison pulled out a document. We've prepared a clarification of collaborative responsibilities. It outlines how ideas flow through the organization and recognizes your technical implementation role. I scanned the paper. It characterized my work as technical execution of strategic concepts. It minimized my creative contributions and positioned me as simply implementing Ryan's vision. They wanted me to sign it immediately. This would help document your understanding of collaborative credit, Allison explained. It will be beneficial for your career development. I need to review this more carefully, I said, not touching the pen. Bradley's smile tightened. Of course. Take the day. But we do need this resolved quickly. The cross-pattern project is moving forward, and we need all team members aligned. I left with the unsigned document, my evidence folder untouched on their table. Has this happened to your workplace, when HR protects the company, not the employees? The notification on my phone was from Jenna. Lunch today? Important. I met her at a cafe 2 blocks from the office. Safe territory. You talked to HR, she said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Bradley from legal was asking about you this morning. Wanted to know if you were a team player. She made air quotes with her fingers. That's what happens when someone challenges the system. Did you know David before he left? I asked, remembering our brief conversation. He was my mentor. Brilliant guy. Created the core analytics engine that made NextWave successful. Ryan took credit for the consumer behavior modeling framework David built. When David complained, suddenly he was not meeting expectations. What happened to him? Works at Tensor Analytics now. Much happier. She wrote his email on a napkin. He might share some perspective if you reach out. I contacted David that afternoon. We met for coffee the next day. I wondered when someone else would notice the pattern, he said after I explained my situation. Ryan did the same thing to me. Started as small stuff, then got bolder. By the end, he was presenting my core architecture design as his innovation breakthrough. Did you try to fight it? David laughed without humor. I brought evidence to my director. Next day, HR called me in for a conflict resolution meeting. 2 weeks later, I was on a performance improvement plan for communication issues. The message was clear. So you left. Best decision I ever made. But I wish I protected myself better while I was there. He leaned forward. Document everything. And watch your access permissions. They restricted my server access after I complained. Couldn't even prove what I'd built. Back at the office, I took David's advice and checked my system permissions. Everything looked normal, but something else caught my attention. The server logs showed someone reviewing my access history. Someone from IT security. I made a casual visit to the IT help desk about an unrelated printer issue. Miguel had helped me with technical problems for years. As he fixed my fake printer problem, I mentioned casually, been having some weird server access lately. Anything going on with the system? Miguel glanced around before responding quietly. Several security audits running on R&D servers. Focus on your project directories specifically. Came from VP level. He handed me my printer confirmation. Be careful what you store on company servers. The warning was clear. They were watching my digital movements. The next day, Zach, a junior developer on my team, stopped by my desk. Hey, weird question, he said, keeping his voice low. Did you request all your project files to be migrated to the executive review folder? No. Why? I overheard Ryan and Bradley talking about Mark's problem and securing intellectual assets. Then IT got instructions to copy all your project files to a special review directory. Thought you should know. They were preparing for something. Possibly removing my access or building a case against me. I needed to talk to someone with more insight into the executive level. Sandra in product strategy had been with NextWave since the beginning and had seen everything. We met for after-work drinks at a bar far from the office. Ryan has powerful allies, she confirmed after hearing my story. He's been the golden boy ever since he helped the CEO's pet project succeed 3 years ago. That project used my customer prediction algorithm. I noted. Sandra nodded. Exactly. The CEO thinks Ryan walks on water because of that success. But not everyone's fooled. There's been talk. People have noticed the pattern. Why doesn't anyone say anything? People who challenge Ryan tend to disappear from the company. But, she hesitated, there are others who've been documenting things. Not just about your situation. As we parted, she gave me a meaningful look. Check your personal email tonight. When I got home, I found a message from an anonymous account. No subject line, just 2 sentences. Check the share drive. Password is NextWave86. Has this happened at your workplace? When the Whisper Network knows the truth before it's public. I clicked the link and entered the password. A cloud storage folder opened, labeled simply Documentation. Inside were dozens of subfolders organized by year and project name. I recognized many of them. My breath caught when I clicked the first one. It contained a complete archive of presentation decks. Ryan's original versions before they went to executives and the final versions presented. Side by side, they told a damning story. Original decks had notes like Mark's algorithm and based on Mark's approach. Final versions had removed all references to me. This wasn't just about my work. The drive contained similar folders for at least 7 other employees. David's name appeared repeatedly in the early files. So did Sarah from Customer Insights. Each folder showed the same pattern. Ideas taken, attribution removed, credit reassigned. But the real shock came when I opened a folder labeled Executive Communications. It contained email chains that someone had carefully archived. One thread from the chief financial officer discussed Ryan's compensation package. Ryan's innovation bonus structure is justified based on his consistent delivery of proprietary algorithms and frameworks. The Q3 payment of $175,000 for the cross-pattern recognition framework is approved based on projected client retention increases. $175,000. For my algorithm, the approvals came from higher up. This wasn't just Ryan acting alone. The executive team was rewarding him specifically for claiming others' work. Another email thread revealed something even more disturbing. The chief operating officer discussing innovation attribution strategy. We need to centralize innovation credit through established leadership channels. Dispersed attribution creates compensation challenges and dilutes our executive IP narrative for investors. Ryan's approach of synthesizing technical innovations into strategic frameworks allows us to maintain consistent messaging. Translation: it was official policy to funnel credit upward. They deliberately took credit from those who did the work and gave it to those with the right titles. I found a spreadsheet titled Innovation Pipeline Value. It tracked each innovation, its projected revenue impact, and attributed executive. Ryan's name appeared beside 9 major projects from the past 3 years. I had personally created 4 of them. David had built 3. The remaining 2 came from other team members. The total bonus allocations to Ryan for these projects, $1.2 million. I felt physically sick. This wasn't just theft. It was systematic exploitation. Then I found the folder labeled Talent Strategy. It contained a presentation from an executive retreat 6 weeks ago. One slide showed a matrix of employees categorized by replaceability and visibility risk. In the high replaceability, high-risk quadrant was a list of names. My name was highlighted at the top. Notes from the following slide explain the strategy. Transition knowledge from high-risk resources to centralized teams. Create documentation requirements to extract IP. Implement performance management where necessary. The next file chilled me completely. Reduction planning, confidential. A layoff list for the coming quarter, categorized by department. In the R&D section, there I was again. And my name was next to a target date. Just 3 weeks away. They were planning to push me out after extracting everything they could from me. Another folder contained calendar invites and meeting notes. One series of meetings was titled Cross-Pattern Transition Planning. The notes outlined a clear strategy, marked to document all algorithm components and decision factors. Knowledge transfer to Ryan's new strategic innovation team. Full documentation deadline moved up to match proposed exit timeline. They wanted me to transfer everything I knew before showing me the door. The final document was the most revealing. An email from Ryan to HR and legal, sent just days after I refused to sign their clarification document. Mark continues to create ownership confusion around strategic initiatives. His technical role has been properly credited, but his expectation of innovation attribution is causing team friction. Recommend accelerating the transition plan and implementing performance management protocols to protect company IP assets. I sat back, my mind racing. This wasn't just about stolen credit anymore. This was about my career, my reputation, and my livelihood. But amid the shock, something else emerged. A cold, calculated resolve. They thought they had all the power. They thought I would follow their script. But they had made one critical mistake. They didn't know what I knew. And they certainly didn't know what I was about to do. I closed a shared drive and opened a new document. I began methodically planning my counter-strategy. Has this happened at your workplace, when you realized the game was rigged from the start? I needed allies, but I had to be careful. Anyone too close to Ryan or the executive team will be dangerous. I needed people with credibility who could verify specific parts of my story. First, I approached Teresa in the legal department. Unlike Bradley, she worked on patent filings and had no connection to HR issues. I scheduled a casual lunch, framing it as seeking career advice. I'm thinking about my next steps at NextWave, I said after we settled in. I've created several key algorithms here. I'm curious how our IP ownership works if I eventually move to another role. Teresa was direct. The employment agreement gives NextWave ownership of anything created on company time or with company resources. But our patent filings and external communications must legally list the true inventors and authors, even if someone else is presenting it internally. I asked. She paused, studying me. Attribution and ownership are different issues. Misrepresenting authorship on legal documents would be problematic. Internal credit can be more flexible, but there should still be documentation of the actual creator. Where would that documentation be kept? Project files, Git commits, development logs. Technical creation leaves footprints. She lowered her voice. Are you concerned about something specific? I kept my response vague, but took her business card. I had confirmation that my digital evidence had legal significance. Next, I needed to verify the financial side. Jenna introduced me to Carlos in finance, who managed innovation budget allocations. We met for coffee offsite. I approached indirectly. I'm trying to understand how innovation bonuses work, I explained. My team creates algorithms that drive significant value, but I've never seen how that translates to compensation. Carlos glanced around before responding. Most technical staff don't know this, but executives receive special achievement bonuses for innovations. Sometimes 6 figures for a single contribution. How is the value determined? Projected revenue impact, client retention improvements, market differentiation. The cross-pattern recognition framework, for example, that triggered a major bonus because it saved the Rapid Retail account. Who received that bonus? I asked, already knowing the answer. That would be confidential, Carlos said, but his expression confirmed everything. But generally, the person presenting the innovation to the executive committee is the one receiving attribution. Our meeting suddenly moved to a room with no windows. Carlos had noticed someone from Ryan's team enter the coffee shop. We relocated to his car for privacy. Look, he said once we were alone. I've processed unusual bonus allocations for years. The patterns are obvious to anyone handling the payments. But questioning it isn't worth the career risk. I thanked him for his candor. Another piece confirmed. For technical validation, I needed someone with unquestioned expertise. Dr. Eleanor Chun, our principal architect, had been with the company since the beginning. Her technical judgment was respected by everyone, including the CEO. I scheduled time with her under the pretense of discussing algorithm optimization. The cross-pattern approach is elegant, she said after reviewing my technical documentation. The connection between behavioral markers and prediction triggers shows original thinking. How long have you been developing this? About 6 months, I replied. I have all the development logs showing the evolution. She nodded thoughtfully. I saw Ryan present this concept. I had assumed you were collaborating. What gave you that impression? The technical underpinnings were clearly from someone with algorithm expertise. Ryan doesn't have that background. She studied me carefully. Is there something I should know? I took a calculated risk. I'm concerned about proper attribution. I have documentation showing I created this algorithm independently. I suspected as much. She sighed. This isn't the first time I've seen this pattern. Technical talent creates, management presents, credit flows upward. Would you be willing to confirm the technical origin if asked? I follow the evidence, she said simply. Code authorship is traceable. After each meeting, I immediately documented everything. Names, dates, exact quotes, locations. I was building a case that couldn't be dismissed as a disgruntled employee's complaints. Has this happened at your workplace, when you needed to build a coalition just to be heard? With allies confirming different pieces of my story, I needed to organize everything into an undeniable narrative. Evidence scattered across files and conversations wouldn't be enough. I needed to create a complete picture that anyone could understand immediately. First, I built a master timeline. For each of my stolen innovations, I documented. When I first developed the concept, with code commits and timestamps. When I shared it with Ryan, with meeting records and emails. When Ryan accessed my files, server logs. When Ryan met with executives, calendar records. When Ryan presented his innovation, presentation files with metadata. What recognition or bonus followed, company announcements. The pattern was consistent across all 7 incidents. The timeline showed an unmistakable cycle repeating over and over. Next, I compiled the email evidence. Ryan's messages followed a clear formula. First, he'd ask innocent questions about my current projects. Then specific technical inquiries. Finally, requests for diagrams or documentation to help explain to leadership. Within days of these exchanges, he would present my work as his own. I organized screenshots showing the progression of my code repositories. Git commits don't lie. They create a permanent record of who wrote what code and when. The timestamps and author fields couldn't be altered without leaving evidence of tampering. My authorship was indisputable. I collected metadata from all relevant documents. Every file in our system records when it was created, by whom, when it was modified, and who accessed it. This metadata told a clear story of Ryan consistently accessing my work before creating his presentations. For the cross-pattern recognition algorithm specifically, I assembled a detailed creation history. My notes from 6 months ago showed the initial concept. Progressive development logs showed how I refined it. Test results demonstrated its evolution, all with timestamps and authentication logs proving my authorship. While organizing financial documents from a shared drive, I noticed something odd. The quarterly innovation bonus spreadsheet seemed incomplete. The bonus amounts didn't match the total budget allocation. Something was missing. I examined the Excel file properties and discovered the spreadsheet had a hidden tab. When I unhid it, I found what they were concealing. A complete accounting of all innovation bonuses paid to executives over the past 3 years. Ryan had received over $1.2 million for his innovations. Each entry correlated exactly with projects stolen from me and others. Even more damning, the hidden tab included a column labeled Creator Reference that listed the actual developers of each innovation. My name appeared multiple times. So did David's, and several other engineers who had left the company. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were tracking the real creators while deliberately hiding attribution and diverting the financial rewards. I compiled everything into a master document with hyperlinks to supporting evidence. Anyone reviewing it could verify each claim independently. The narrative was clear, factual, and devastating. As I finalized my documentation, a strange calm settled over me. For weeks, I'd felt powerless and angry. Now, looking at the mountain of evidence, I felt something different. Confidence. They might have power and position, but I had something more valuable. The truth, meticulously documented. My phone chimed with an email notification. A company-wide announcement. Innovation Showcase. VP Ryan Chambers to present breakthrough cross-pattern recognition framework to key clients and executive team. Thursday, 2 p.m., main conference center. Perfect timing. Has this happened at your workplace, when documentation became your only defense? Ryan's upcoming presentation created the perfect opportunity. He would once again present my work as his own, but this time I would be prepared. I needed to create something Ryan would steal, something that looked impressive but contained a fatal flaw, one that would only be revealed during a live demonstration. I began by creating two versions of the cross-pattern recognition algorithm. The real version, which I kept on my encrypted personal drive, and a presentation version that I stored on the company's server where Ryan regularly accessed my work. The flawed version looked identical on the surface. It produced the same outputs during small-scale tests. The documentation was comprehensive. The diagrams were polished. Anyone reviewing it casually would see a complete, functional algorithm. But I built in a critical limitation. When processing more than 500 simultaneous connections, exactly what would happen during a client demonstration? The system would generate cascading errors. Not subtle ones. Visible, catastrophic failures that would be impossible to explain away or quickly fix. Next, I needed to ensure Ryan would take the bait. I updated the server logs to show I had finalized the algorithm. I created a folder labeled Cross-Pattern Final Documentation and filled it with compelling visuals and impressive results from controlled tests. I monitored the server access logs hourly. Ryan's pattern was predictable. When he learned about the upcoming presentation opportunity, he would seek out my latest work to claim as his own. While waiting for Ryan to access the files, I prepared my countermove. I compiled my complete evidence package onto a secure flash drive. I included the full evidence timeline, all server access logs showing Ryan's pattern of theft, email trails demonstrating the sequence of events, the innovation bonus spreadsheet with its revealing hidden tab, testimonials from colleagues confirming my authorship, and most importantly, the actual working algorithm with documentation proving I created it. With my trap set, I needed to establish a safety net. I couldn't just rely on Ryan's presentation failing. I needed allies positioned to support me when the moment came. I reached out to Eleanor Chun, our principal architect. I've refined the cross-pattern algorithm significantly. Would you be willing to review the technical documentation after Ryan's presentation on Thursday? Of course, she replied. I'm attending the showcase. I'm curious to see the final implementation. Next, I made a careful move. I learned that Barbara Winters, a board member with a technical background, would be attending the presentation. Through a former colleague who now worked directly with the board, I sent a discreet message. Concerns about proper attribution of technical innovations have been raised by multiple team members. The Thursday showcase may highlight this issue. Simple, professional, and just enough to ensure she would be paying attention. Finally, I submitted a detailed report to the ethics hotline. I didn't expect immediate action, but I needed an official record that predated the presentation. The timestamp would prove I had raised concerns before the public exposure. The night before the presentation, I received an automated alert. Someone accessed my account at 2:11 a.m. The log showed they downloaded the entire cross-pattern documentation package and copied it to a private directory. Right on schedule. The morning of the presentation, I received the calendar invitation. Innovation Showcase, Cross-Pattern Recognition Framework. Presenter, Ryan Chambers, VP of Strategic Innovation. Location, Main Conference Center. Time, 2 p.m. All senior leadership and key clients would be there. Perfect. Has this happened at your workplace, when you had to set a trap to prove what was happening? The main conference center was packed. Executive row filled the front, with our CEO centered. 3 rows of senior leadership behind them. Along the sides sat representatives from our biggest clients, including the rapid retail team, whose account my algorithm had been designed to save. I took a seat in the back, flash drive secure in my pocket. Ryan stood at the podium, the picture of executive confidence in his tailored suit. The large screen behind him displayed our company logo and the title, Cross-Pattern Recognition Framework, the future of customer targeting. Today represents a breakthrough in predictive analytics, Ryan began, smiling at the executive team. The cross-pattern recognition framework I've developed will transform how we understand customer behavior. He clicked through slides showing the core concepts, my diagrams, with only slight modifications. He used my exact terminology, even my examples. Several developers on my team glanced back at me. They knew whose work this really was. But rather than just tell you about it, I want to show you the algorithm in action, Ryan continued. We've prepared a live demonstration using Rapid Retail's actual customer data. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Ryan clicked to launch the demonstration. At first, everything looked normal. The initial data loading completed successfully. Simple visualizations appeared on screen. Ryan explained each element confidently, taking credit for every innovation I had created. Then came the first error message. Small, in the corner of the screen. Just a minor glitch, Ryan said, dismissing it with a wave. Let's continue. But more errors appeared as the system attempted to process the full data set. Warning notifications began stacking up. The visualizations froze, then distorted. We seem to be having some technical difficulties, Ryan said, his confidence wavering. He clicked frantically, trying to restart the demo. That only made it worse. Now the entire screen filled with error messages. The algorithm had completely failed, exactly as I had designed it to. Ryan's face flushed red. I apologize for the technical issues. Perhaps one of our engineers can explain what's happening. He looked desperately at his team, but they were as confused as he was. They hadn't built the algorithm. They couldn't fix what they didn't create. The room grew uncomfortable. Executives shifted in their seats. The Rapid Retail client checked his watch. Our CEO's expression darkened. Perhaps we should reschedule, someone suggested. That's when Ryan made his final mistake. He began blaming others. The development team must have changed something, he insisted. The implementation doesn't match my design specifications. I stood up quietly. I believe I can help resolve this issue. All eyes turned to me. Mark, Ryan said, clearly unsure whether to be relieved or concerned. Perhaps you can explain the technical difficulties? I walked calmly to the front of the room, flash drive in hand. I'd be happy to demonstrate the actual cross-pattern recognition algorithm, I said, voice steady. The version that works correctly. I plugged in my drive and launched the real algorithm, the one I had created and perfected over months. The one with my name embedded in every line of code. The system ran flawlessly. Data flowed through visualizations exactly as intended. The error messages disappeared. The audience's attention shifted from Ryan to the functioning demonstration. This is remarkable, said the Rapid Retail executive, leaning forward. This is exactly what we've been looking for. Who developed this? Asked Barbara Winters, the board member. I did, I replied simply. They asked if I'd go on record to explain the development process and technical details. I nodded. I would be happy to discuss the algorithm I created. Ryan stood frozen, watching his carefully constructed narrative collapse. Has this happened at your workplace, when someone's incompetence finally became impossible to hide? My office. Now, the CEO's words cut through the awkward silence. He gestured to me, the general counsel, our CTO, and Barbara from the board. Ryan stood uncertainly until the CEO added, You too, Ryan. We walked silently to the executive floor. No one spoke until the door closed behind us. Explain, the CEO said simply, looking at me. I connected my flash drive to the conference room display. For the past 3 years, my work has been consistently presented by Ryan as his own creation. I began, my voice steady. I've documented each instance methodically. I displayed the timeline first. 7 major innovations, each following the same pattern. I showed server access logs with timestamps highlighting Ryan's digital footprints. After each of our meetings, Ryan accessed my project files, usually after hours. Here are the exact dates and times. Next, I displayed split-screen comparisons of my original documentation beside Ryan's presentations. The similarities were undeniable. The cross-pattern algorithm was developed entirely by me over 6 months. I have complete development logs and code commits proving authorship. The CTO leaned forward, studying the technical evidence. The code signatures are clear. This is Mark's work. I showed them the innovation bonus spreadsheet with its hidden tab. Ryan received approximately $1.2 million in bonuses for innovations created by myself and others. Ryan attempted to interrupt. This is a misunderstanding about collaborative. The CEO held up his hand, silencing him. The evidence is speaking for itself. I concluded with documentation from multiple colleagues confirming my authorship of the algorithms in question. I'm not the only one this has happened to, I added. David Chun, Sarah Miller, and at least 5 others experienced the same pattern. The room fell silent as they processed the evidence. The general counsel made notes. Barbara Winters shook her head in disbelief. The CEO finally spoke. Ryan, please wait outside with my assistant. After Ryan left, the CEO turned to me. Why bring this forward now? I discovered I was on a targeted layoff list after my work was extracted. I replied, showing them the document. The system was designed to exploit innovation while discarding its creators. 2 hours later, back at my desk, I saw it happen. Security walked someone past my desk. Ryan, carrying a small box of personal items, badge already confiscated. Has this happened at your workplace, when the truth finally couldn't be buried anymore? The company-wide email arrived that afternoon. Effective immediately, Ryan Chambers is no longer with NextWave. An interim leadership team will manage strategic innovation while we conduct a thorough review. We are committed to maintaining the highest standards of professional conduct and proper attribution of work. It was only the beginning. Within days, the CEO announced a comprehensive code of conduct review focused on innovation attribution and credit allocation. An external consulting firm arrived to interview staff at all levels about their experiences. We're concerned that our processes may have inadvertently created improper incentives, the CEO told the all-hands meeting. We're committed to fixing any systemic issues we uncover. 2 weeks later, the first changes appeared. A new intellectual property attribution policy was published with unambiguous language. All technical innovations must credit the original creators in all internal and external communications. Presentation of others' work as one's own is grounds for immediate termination. The innovation bonus structure was completely redesigned. Rather than executives receiving bonuses for strategic vision, rewards would flow directly to the actual creators of valuable innovations. The hidden spreadsheet system was replaced with transparent attribution. The most surprising change came a month later. After the external review completed, 3 HR leaders announced their retirement, including Bradley from legal. The new HR director's first action was to cancel all pending performance improvement plans for technical staff. Project documentation throughout the company was updated. My name now appeared as the creator of the cross-pattern recognition framework and 6 other key innovations. David and others received similar restoration of credit. The CTO invited me to his office to discuss a new role. We need someone to lead a team focused on algorithm innovation, someone with both technical skill and integrity. That's when the apology email went company-wide. Not a vague corporate statement, but a specific acknowledgement. We recognize that several team members, including Mark Winters, did not receive proper credit for their innovations. We apologize for this failure and are implementing systemic changes to ensure it never happens again. The culture shift wasn't immediate, but it was real. People spoke more openly. Documentation became more thorough. Attribution became a point of pride rather than a battleground. Has this happened at your workplace, when a toxic system finally faced consequences? 6 months later, NextWave is a different company, and I'm in a different role. My official promotion came with a title I helped create, Director of Algorithm Innovation. My team focuses on developing new predictive frameworks with one key difference. Everyone gets credit for their work. No exceptions. The cross-pattern recognition algorithm is now our flagship product. Client satisfaction is up 32%. And every presentation deck shows my name as creator. I turned down offers from competitors. Some people were surprised I stayed after everything that happened. But changing the system from within was more satisfying than walking away. My experience changed how I approach work. I document everything meticulously, not from paranoia, but as professional best practice. Every meeting has notes. Every idea has a timestamp. Every contribution has clear ownership. I become an unofficial mentor for younger developers learning to navigate corporate politics. Not to play the game, but to protect themselves while doing great work. Create a documentation habit, I tell them. 5 minutes after every important conversation, write down what was discussed and decided. It's not about expecting theft. It's about valuing your contributions enough to record them. The new leadership team asked me to help draft the company's innovation attribution playbook. The first principle we established: credit follows creation, regardless of title or position. The people who tried to push me out, most have moved on. The toxic system that enabled them is dismantled. The developers who had their ideas stolen, several have returned, bringing their talents back to a healthier environment. I still keep that flash drive with all the evidence. Not because I need it anymore, but as a reminder that the truth has power when properly documented. If I could go back and give my younger self advice, it would be simple. Your work matters. Your ideas have value. And your career deserves protection. Document everything. You'll thank yourself later. Has this happened to your workplace, when you had to decide whether to stay and rebuild or walk away? Your boss might be reading your brilliant ideas right now and mentally removing your name. Start documenting today, because receipts beat regrets every time. Like this video if you've ever caught someone taking credit for your work. Subscribe for more workplace survival stories. And drop a comment with your own revenge tactics, because while karma might be slow, documentation is forever.